The 2025 Dallas Cowboys need to get back to the postseason, but how do they have more playoff success? We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Moser. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Moser. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And on today's show, we are answering your mailbag questions from Twitter, including which day 3 pick do we think is going to have the biggest role for the Cowboys in 2025? Plus, could an all-pro player change positions this year? We'll break that down later. But later, let's start with this first question from Evan. He wants to know, what's something that's different about the 2025 Dallas Cowboys that could lead to more postseason success?
Yeah, to me, it feels like what the Cowboys at least think needs to be different is their success in the run game. I think that's clearly, and I think it applies to both sides of the ball. But I think specifically, their recommitment to trying to find a way to create more of a run game around Dak Prescott, so that by the time the end of the season rolls around, they have the kind of efficient run game that usually takes teams into deep runs of the playoffs. I mean, it's obviously this season last season with the Eagles, a good portion of what they did was running the football, and maybe even an abnormally large portion of what they do is running the football. And I don't think that the Cowboys are necessarily striving to be that sort of running team where it's a high volume, high efficiency run team. I think that they're just looking to have a reliable, high efficiency run game that when it gets later in the year, if things aren't working, immediately and efficiently in the passing game, that it's something that they can rely on to continue to move the chains and hopefully change some of the angles that would allow for the pass game to continue to thrive. Because I think what we've seen in the past is that they get to the end of the year, and if the pass game isn't working or isn't quite as efficient as it was at the beginning of the year, it all just kind of falls on Dak to try to hit guys who aren't maybe open or without very much time in the pocket. And I think having a solid run game could really change the angles on a lot of that. It helps relieve the pressure on Dak, and it also helps get guys open by changing the angles of the box and the safeties in the back end.
So I go back and forth a little bit on this. First of all, my first thing I thought of was that they need to be better on defense. I saw a stat today from Nick Harris where the last time the Cowboys have won a game where they've scored less than 20 points was all the way back in 2018, that Thursday night game against the Saints, where I think they won like 17-12 or 17-9. So part of me feels like maybe the defense just needs to be better against quality opponents. Like, don't give up 35 points or 45 points to the Packers or whatever the number is. Like, find a way to be able to stop these good offenses, right? And hold them to 20, 21 points. So you're not having to ask your offense to do as much. And maybe, Landon, that goes to your point. Like, hey, if you have a better run game, maybe you limit the number of possessions in the game, and maybe that's how you get to that. But then I was looking at the postseason results from this year. And again, I know it's a fairly small sample size, but I believe the average amount of points that the winning team scored in the postseason was like 33, 34. It still comes down to how well your offense can play. If you can have an offense that can score 33, 34, 35 points in a postseason game, more often than not, you're going to win. And now that you have George Pickens, I think you actually have the weapons to go out there and potentially do that.
I mean, I think look, we're talking about winning the Super Bowl or advancing in the NFL playoffs. I think it requires both. And I think the reason we know that it requires both is because if we go back to when the Cowboys had a similar level of quality pass receivers in this offense, and they were in the playoffs, and it still wasn't quite enough, right? I think that they need to get back to that passing attack level to be able to score the kind of points that you're talking about. Absolutely. But then on top of that, in order to control the game when you need to be able to stop and be able to run the football when when it's time. Right. And I think that's where, like, if the Cowboys had been able to, in some of these games, rely on their defense to make a stop or two, or rely on their run game to help carry them as the offense kind of figured itself out in the early part of the game, I think, they win one or two of those games that they lost in the playoffs with Dak Prescott. So I think it's, yes, I mean, the floor requires that you get your passing attack and your points up where they need to be in order to win those games. But then again, if we want to go where we need to go and just beyond that and the levels that we've been, we also need to add on the ability to stop the run and to efficiently run the ball so that we can kind of continue to control the game as well.
Last thing, I'd like to see them have multiple paths to victory. It seems like during the, let's say, the Mike McCarthy, Dan Quinn era, their path was get an early lead, let the pass rushers tee off, and just try to snowball things, right? And that's how they won a lot of games. The offense would start out fast, and then the defense would get turnovers, and then they could blow teams out. But I look at, I hate to give the Eagles any credit, but I'm going to. They played a game in Wild Card Weekend against the Packers that was a defensive slugfest, kind of sloppy, but they won it on special teams and defense. In the divisional round, they played a snow game against the Rams at home, and that was a game where they couldn't throw the ball at all, so they just leaned on their run and won that game. In the championship game, they played a shootout game against the Commanders. They scored 55 points, and then against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they scored 40 points, but that was really mostly because their defense was just absolutely incredible to kick off that game. So I think the Eagles are an example of how you need to be able to win different styles in different ways in the NFL. And I think too often the Cowboys were a little bit too one-dimensional under Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, well, yeah. And the two things that they had underneath their belt was they had a really, really good pass rushing defense and a very good passing offense. And I think they had that at several different points, and it propelled them into the playoffs. But not having one of those two other elements that you need, at least one of them, it really kind of limited their ability to win, the amount of ways that they could win games. So I think we're saying the same thing, basically.
All right, let's discuss the 1 day 3 pick that we think could have a big role in 2025. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I'm still taking the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the NBA championship. I thought they were the best team all regular season. They've been proving that in the playoffs. You can go bet on them on the futures market right now. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are answering your Twitter questions. This next one comes from Ben. He wants to know, Marcus, Landon, if you guys could choose 1 day 3 pick or Cowboys undrafted free agent to be a major contributor this season, who would it be and why?
I mean, I think the answer that immediately pops in my mind is Jaydon Blue, right? Like, I mean, he's a 5th round pick, and again, like in a draft which was incredibly deep at running back, you're hoping that you got a really great value in the 5th round and a guy that you think that can come in right away and at least an interesting target as a receiver out of the backfield and be able to help you as an explosive option out of as a runner. I don't know that I'm necessarily looking for him to be the certainly not the bell cow, maybe not even the lead in the committee necessarily, but if he can come in here and give us some dynamic two-way play as a receiver and a runner, that could be enough to just supercharge the running back room and really kind of make those sort of changes that we just talked about in the last segment for this rushing attack.
I like where you're thinking, but I'm going a different player. I'm going to go with Phil Mafa, a 7th round pick at running back, because I think you're right. I think Jaydon Blue I think he's going to have a role on this team regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think we could debate maybe on how big of a role. Maybe it's 4 touches a game. Maybe it's 8 touches a game. But I feel like they're going to work him onto the field in some form or fashion. But if Phil Mafa comes right in and he's the not every down, that's the wrong word, the early down back who's getting the between the tackle touches, he's the one that's grinding out the hard yards. He's the one that you can play in bad weather. I think we suddenly feel a whole lot better about this backfield if you have somebody that can actually provide some positive value on the ground, because I think Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders are kind of just guys at this point. And if you could find a starting caliber running back in Phil Mafa in the round 7, you're hitting a home run.
Yeah, I mean, really, because the Jaydon Blue stuff is kind of baked in. Originally what I wanted to say was, the obvious answer is Jaydon Blue, because truly the Cowboys are relying on Jaydon Blue to come in and be some sort of factor, right?
He's going to have some kind of role regardless. Yes,
exactly. And that's why your answer is probably more correct, because if Mafa comes in and has a role, then that means he's exceeded expectations and you're getting more out of what you thought you were going to get in the second running back drafted in this class. And to your point, because of the role that he's playing as the early down back, it may move the needle on this offense a little bit more because of what that could ultimately mean for the offense, right? Yeah. So I 100% agree with you that, like, if you got that out of him, I think that would be a huge thing as well. I think the other guy that kind of jumps out a little bit there is Toye, right? Jay Toye, the 7th round pick as well. If you get him to come in and you get some solid play from him right away, maybe you don't need to necessarily go out and get a veteran guy, or you go out and get a veteran guy and he stays on the bench because you're just trying to play Toye a lot. So I think he's another guy that you feel like you got to steal in the 7th round. You felt like he was kind of a 3rd or 4th rounder, and maybe that's enough to feel like he can earn spot actually get some snaps on game day.
Now, here's what you're hoping doesn't happen: that these day 3 picks are playing because they've had a bunch of injuries, or the guys in front of them are just bad, or they just don't have depth. And I think that's my fear a little bit with Toya. It's like maybe he's getting on the field because they just literally don't have another option. Like, he's competing with like Justin Rogers for snaps, and maybe he's getting on the field even though he's not qualified. But I feel like with Phil Mafa, if he's beating out Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders for a job, he's at least giving you a baseline level of production. And the fact that a 7th round pick is playing over 2 veterans probably means that he's playing well. So I think that's why I'm at least intrigued by Mafa. I do want to point out, there were a couple people today that were saying, hey, 7th round picks, the odds of him even making the roster are low. You look around the league, there are a lot of day 3 picks that are starting, right now in backfields, whether that's like a Ramondre Stevenson and Devin Singletary did before, and Isaiah Pacheco is in Kansas City. It's not that uncommon to see late day 3 picks come in and play a lot of snaps early on.
Yeah, and on top of that, I love that yours is based on the implication of what it would mean that Mafa was the starting.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean,
no, it's brilliant. No, I do love it. Yeah, and to your point about the 7th round pick and running back, it doesn't really matter where they get picked. Like, let's see what they look like when they get into camp. Because here's the thing: like, again, this is almost like a historically deep middle class running back class that we got in this draft. So the fact that he was a 7th round pick, he may have been a 4th or 5th round pick in any other class, right? So let's see how he actually performs, because I listen, it's a young man's game at running back, without a doubt. Like, once you get a certain amount of carries in your lower body, you start to break down a little bit. And for a guy like Javonte Williams, I mean, unfortunately, already had multiple ligament injury. We're hoping that he bounces back and shows us some of the explosiveness that he did as a rookie, right? Like, Mafa comes in with a whole lot less touches on his body, and a lot healthier legs. So there certainly is an opportunity for him to go in there and take this job and do it well, because again, we've just seen this happen a lot of times. It's just one of the positions that it doesn't really matter if you're a 1st or 2nd or 3rd round pick. The floor for getting in here and performing well, if you are in a good system and have good blocking, it's pretty high. If you can run in college, you can run behind an NFL backfield at a replaceable level, maybe not at an all-pro level necessarily.
No, and the Cowboys don't need him to be an all-pro. They just need to find a solid, reliable back. And I would be more concerned if this was like a small school running back, or maybe a guy that played at a lower level of college and he's trying to make the transition to the NFL. But we're talking about a running back in Phil Mafa, who played at Clemson, who split time with Will Shipley, a day 3 pick in the 2024 draft, who just got a little bit banged up, right? And we've seen, I'm going to keep saying this, we've seen plenty of running backs who have been day 3 picks or undrafted come in and have big time NFL careers right away. The guy that I've been comparing him to for the last several weeks is LeGarrette Blount, who went undrafted, signed with the Titans, got cut, signed with the Buccaneers before week 1, ended up becoming their starter and rushed for 1,000 yards as a rookie. He is a very similar player to LeGarrette Blount. It wouldn't shock me if he had a pretty decent rookie year, despite being a 7th round pick.
I think Rico Dowdle would have had a great rookie year if he hadn't gotten injured. I think
100% agree. Yes.
And like, you see it right away with these guys if they're good. I saw it right away with Rico Dowdle, and that's why I was like so big on him coming into the season the year before too. So I think it's not hard if these guys are talented and they're mature in their skill set. For them to come in and be productive, good players right away, which is again why Marcus constantly brings up the value of running backs. It's because it's easy to kind of draft these guys and plug them in and play them at a decently high level at very cheap rates.
You just don't find consistently players at other positions that are drafted on day 3 that come in and play right away. Like, our best receiver right now that it was a day 3 pick was Puka Nacua. All of the other names, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, like Drake London, Marvin Harrison Jr., all 1st round picks, and a lot of them top 20 picks. You just don't get those guys very often that rise up the depth chart because they're, day 3 pick. Phil Mafa is a good player. I know he's a 7th round pick. He's probably landed, I'm sure you can tell by my voice, one of the players that I'm most excited to see this week at OTAs, and then as we get into training camp, because there's a non-zero chance that he's just way better than Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams day 1 of camp.
Yeah, and again, like, I think we can't harp on this anymore, but this isn't a 7th round cornerback that we're relying on, or a 7th round wide receiver to come in and to take wide receiver 2. It's a running back. This is totally within the realm of believability that this guy could come in and give you good, solid snaps. Maybe not be the bell cow, like we say, but part of a rotation, the head of a rotation. Absolutely. That's absolutely doable for someone like this.
All right, let's talk about an all-pro player that could be on the move in 2025. We will discuss that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, our final question here comes from Mike Crum, a longtime everydayer of the Locked On Cowboys podcast. He wants to know, how come the idea of moving an all-pro offensive guard, Tyler Smith, to offensive tackle gets everyone up in arms, but the idea of moving an all-pro cornerback, Daron Bland, from the outside to the slot is a cool, smart move? I don't like either move either way, is what Mike says. So it's a fair question, Landon, but what do you think?
I mean, I think part of it is that, you know, cornerbacks, even outside corners, you know, oftentimes come inside anyways, you know, in the
Just
the
natural
course of a
for
game
them.
and coverage. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't seem that unusual to see them doing that. And I don't think, I think that the idea that nickel corners or inside corners are, you know, paid less or make less money than outside corners, like guards make less money than tackles, I don't think holds up, because I think that there's some players that are nickel only guys, and I think maybe they get paid less because they have a less than varied skill set. But I also think that if you had a guy like Tyler Smith, you know, who's playing guard or tackle, I mean, he's likely to get some pretty good money because he can play both positions. So we'll find out about
He's
that.
going to
I
get
guess.
a lot of money regardless.
Yeah.
Don't you worry about Tyler Smith.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the point here too, is that I think it depends on the player, but I think for the most part, it's mostly about guys who can only play the inside position being valued less, because you can get away with playing those guys a lot more, which, you know, like, it doesn't affect your play if you're having to play a guard only guy or a nickel only guy. But if you don't have an outside guy, if you don't have a tackle that, or don't have an outside corner, that's a real problem. Like, that's much in the middle of a season, or, you know, without the draft. So I think that's why kind of giving up opportunities or losing opportunities to have guys move from the less valued position to the inside position. That's what I think it just generally kind of gives people pause, but it's probably not the right way to look at it necessarily.
Well, I think there's also the implication, like, hey, if you're moving Tyler Smith out to left tackle, what does that say about Tyler Guyton, your first round pick from 2024? And I think there's a lot of Cowboy fans that just have a hard time coming to grips with, like, the idea of, hey, we're putting Tyler Guyton, our developmental left tackle, on the bench, right? So I think that's part of it. The other thing is, we know that Tyler Smith is an all-pro guard. He was a good, I think he was an above average left tackle as a rookie. Now, maybe he gets even better if he kicks out there, but when you have a known quantity with him at guard, and I know Bland is an all-pro at corner, outside corner, but he's just played so much more in the slot than what. It's just a more natural move for Bland to slide inside, because I also don't think it's a long-term move either. I think the idea is you can potentially have maybe Izzy Makamu or one of these other corners step up. But if you're moving Tyler Smith out the left tackle, like, to start week 1, he's probably going to stay there all year long.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, these are two very different situations, but yeah, like, I mean, I know we're kind of, I think that the problem is the implication, right? This definitely seems like a sitcom bit, but the problem is that if you're implying that Tyler Smith is going to be your starter at left tackle, the implication is that Tyler Guyton is not good enough to start, and that you have a bust in the first round and your first round pick from last year. So to me, I don't think that that's happening. So we'll see if that does happen. Then obviously we'll cross that bridge. But I don't know that that's necessarily what is being implied right now. And for the cornerback thing, I think it's more just, hey, we've got a couple different young options that we'd like to see try this. And worst comes to worst, Bland, do you mind playing nickel until we figure out what's going on, or until we sign a veteran? Like, I think that's more the issue. I think this would be less of a thing if Bland wasn't in a contract season. Yeah. That's why I think it's becoming a thing, right?
Do you think the Cowboys are going to re-sign Daron Bland as we sit here today?
I kind of do now. I didn't necessarily before. But I don't know what's changed. But I kind of feel like either the Diggs thing has seemed very
It feels like
contentious.
the attitude that the Cowboys front office has towards Diggs might end up helping Daron Bland get a deal. Almost, you know what it almost reminds me of? It reminds me of when the Cowboys were mad at Lyle Collins, so they gave Terrence Steele a contract, right?
Well, but they didn't choose wrong necessarily.
No,
there,
they did. But I'm
No,
not saying that they were wrong, but I'm saying
yeah.
it was one of those things where Lyle Collins was coming back from a suspension, and they left Terrence Steele into the lineup, and I think that told you everything you needed to know about those two players.
I think it is that case, but I would label it more as Jerry's choices got made easier by one of the two players kind of making the decision for them, and that's what I feel like it may be happening here. Is that Diggs is putting himself in the doghouse a little bit, and Bland has been nothing but a solid citizen. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think I would assume if Deron Bland does go play the slot this year, doesn't grumble too much about it, I'm going to believe that the Cowboys are going to reward him on the back end of the contract. So we'll see. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Moser, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.